In the remote wilderness of Montana's Glacier National Park, there are stories that even the most experienced rangers hesitate to tell. This is one of them. A tale that begins with a parent's worst nightmare, but transforms into something that challenges everything we thought we knew about the intelligence and compassion of wild animals. What happened during those crucial 72 hours wouldn't just save a young life, but would become one of the most studied and documented cases of extraordinary animal behavior in modern history. The October morning started with an unusual stillness, the crisp mountain air hanging heavy with anticipation. Park Ranger Elizabeth Chen, with 15 years of search and rescue experience, would later describe it as the kind of eerie calm that precedes life-changing moments. She and her team of 6 were responding to a frantic call about a missing 8-year-old boy, Mason Thompson, who had wandered away from his family's campsite during the early hours of dawn. But what they would discover in the coming hours would shake their understanding of the natural world to its core. The first sign that this wasn't going to be a typical search and rescue operation came when their tracking dogs began exhibiting unusual behavior. Instead of following a scent trail, the highly trained German shepherds would stop abruptly, whining and circling in confusion, their eyes fixed on the distant tree line with an uncharacteristic mixture of alertness and hesitation. Lead tracker James Morrison, who had worked with these dogs for over a decade, had never seen them act this way. It was as if something in the forest was interfering with their ability to track, or perhaps protecting the trail they were trying to follow. As the search team pressed deeper into the dense forest, they began noticing strange patterns in the wilderness around them. The usual morning chorus of birds had fallen silent, yet there was no sense of danger in the air. Rather, it felt as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. Wildlife specialist Dr. Sarah Patel, who had joined the search effort, pointed out something even more peculiar. The arrangement of broken branches and disturbed undergrowth they were following didn't match the typical patterns of a lost child, or any known predator movement. The team's first major breakthrough came when they discovered a series of tracks that defied conventional explanation. Interwoven with small human footprints were the distinctive marks of multiple bears, but not in any pattern that suggested pursuit or predatory behavior. Instead, the tracks told a story that none of them were prepared to believe. The bears appeared to be walking alongside the child, their massive paws deliberately placed to create a protective formation around the smaller human prints. Local wildlife expert Michael Runningwolf, who had spent his life studying the park's grizzly population, was called to the scene. His initial skepticism turned to amazement as he examined the trail. "In 30 years of tracking and studying bears, I've never seen anything like this," he would later testify. "These weren't random movements. The bears were clearly coordinating their positions, creating what can only be described as an escort pattern around the child's path." As the team followed the mysterious trail, they began finding evidence that further challenged their understanding of wild animal behavior. Small caches of berries and nuts had been gathered and placed at regular intervals along the path. Food sources that would be safe for a human child to eat. Even more remarkably, at several points where the terrain became treacherous, they found crude but effective bridges fashioned from fallen logs, positioned in ways that would help a small child cross safely. The most startling discovery came when they found Mason's torn jacket caught on a branch. Rather than being ripped by claws or teeth as they had feared, The fabric had been deliberately torn into strips and tied to create markers leading in a specific direction. The knots used were too precise to be accidental, showing an intelligence and dexterity that should have been impossible for any wild animal to display. Radio communication between search teams began picking up unusual reports from different sectors of the park. Rangers in adjacent areas were reporting unprecedented behavior among the local bear population. Bears that normally avoided human contact were appearing briefly at the edges of search zones, making unusual vocalizations before disappearing back into the forest. It was as if they were trying to direct the searchers' attention to specific areas. By late afternoon, the search team had followed the trail to a remote valley that none of them had ever explored before. The GPS signals were weak, and their radio communication became intermittent. As they entered the valley, they witnessed something that would later make headlines around the world. A group of 5 full-grown grizzly bears emerged from the tree line, moving with purposeful coordination that seemed almost choreographed. Instead of displaying any aggression, they positioned themselves in a semicircle, their behavior exhibiting what Dr. Patel would later describe as clear, intentional communication. The bears' movements were synchronized in a way that defied natural behavior patterns. They would take several steps forward, then pause, looking back at the search team with an intelligence that seemed to transcend wild animal awareness. Their eyes, instead of showing the usual wariness or aggression, displayed something that the experienced rangers found both fascinating and unsettling: a clear, calculated attempt to communicate. As the light began to fade and the team prepared to set up emergency floodlights, something extraordinary happened. The largest of the bears, a massive grizzly with distinctive silver-tipped fur, separated from the group and approached Ranger Chen. Instead of following any normal protocol for bear encounters, Elizabeth found herself frozen in place, captivated by the bear's deliberate movements and the unmistakable intelligence in its eyes. The bear stopped a safe distance away, rose to its hind legs, and did something that would be analyzed by wildlife experts for years to come. It began making a series of gestures that seemed to mimic human sign language. Dr. Patel, who had been documenting everything on her research camera, captured what happened next. The bear lowered itself back to all fours and began scratching something in the dirt. As the team watched in stunned silence, they realized the bear was creating a crude but recognizable map of the surrounding terrain. What made this even more remarkable was the specific pattern it carved next to the map, a series of marks that, when later analyzed, eerily resembled the universal distress signal, SOS. The implications of what they were witnessing began to sink in. This wasn't just unusual animal behavior. They were in the presence of something that defied everything known about wildlife intelligence and interspecies communication. The bears weren't just aware of the missing child. They appeared to be actively coordinating with human rescuers to ensure his safety. As darkness approached and the temperature began to drop, the team realized they were about to become part of something that would challenge the very foundations of what they thought they knew about the natural world. Little did they know that what they had witnessed so far was just the beginning. The events that would unfold through the night and into the next day would not only lead them to young Mason, but would reveal a level of animal intelligence and compassion that would force science to reevaluate everything it thought it knew about consciousness in the natural world. The bears were about to show them something that would make their initial discoveries seem mundane by comparison, and the world would never look at these creatures the same way again. As darkness settled over the valley, the search team found themselves in an unprecedented situation. The bears, instead of retreating into the night as expected, began organizing what could only be described as a coordinated search operation. The massive silver-tipped grizzly, which the team had started calling Alpha, positioned the other bears in a formation that mirrored standard search and rescue patterns. The intelligence behind these movements became impossible to ignore when Alpha began using broken branches to draw more detailed maps in the soil, each one more precise than the last. Dr. Patel's infrared equipment revealed something even more extraordinary. Throughout the surrounding forest, dozens of other bears had positioned themselves in a complex network, creating what appeared to be a living security perimeter. These bears weren't just standing guard, they were actively communicating with each other through a sophisticated series of vocalizations that went far beyond any known bear behavior. The sound patterns, when later analyzed by audio specialists, showed structured repetition that suggested a primitive but definite language. The temperature continued to drop, and concern for Mason's safety grew more urgent. It was then that Alpha demonstrated a level of problem-solving ability that left even the most skeptical team members speechless. The bear disappeared briefly into the forest and returned carrying dried moss and bark, arranging them in a way that perfectly demonstrated how similar materials had been used to create shelter. Through a series of deliberate movements and gestures, Alpha seemed to be showing the team that Mason had been provided with protection from the elements. James Morrison's tracking dogs, which had earlier shown such unusual behavior, now appeared to be in direct communication with the bears. The German shepherds, normally trained to maintain professional distance from wildlife, were responding to specific vocalizations from the bears, adjusting their search patterns accordingly. This unprecedented cooperation between domestic and wild animals suggested a level of intelligence and interspecies communication that would later become the subject of countless scientific studies. Around midnight, the search team witnessed something that defied explanation. Alpha and two other bears began working together to create complex symbols in the ground using rocks and broken branches. As the team's lighting illuminated these formations, Dr. Patel recognized them as crude but accurate representations of constellation patterns. The bears seemed to be demonstrating their understanding of celestial navigation, suggesting they had been using the stars to guide their movements while protecting Mason. The bears' next actions demonstrated an even deeper understanding of human needs and limitations. They began marking specific plants and fungi along their path, carefully indicating which ones were safe for human consumption. Later analysis would reveal that every marked plant was indeed edible and high in nutritional value, while toxic lookalikes were deliberately crossed out with claw marks. This display of botanical knowledge and concern for human safety went far beyond instinctive behavior. Elizabeth Chen, despite her years of experience, found herself re-evaluating everything she thought she knew about wildlife intelligence. The bears were showing not just problem-solving abilities, but emotional intelligence as well. When team members showed signs of fatigue, Alpha would make gentle grunting sounds and gesture toward fallen logs, suitable for resting. The other bears would then position themselves to maintain watch while the humans recovered their strength. As the night progressed, the team observed the bears engaging in what appeared to be teaching behavior among themselves. Younger bears were being shown specific patterns of movement and communication by their elders, with Alpha overseeing the process. This suggested not just intelligence, but a capacity for passing on complex information, a form of cultural transmission that had never been documented in wild bears before. The most remarkable demonstration came when the team needed to cross a treacherous ravine. Alpha and 3 other bears worked together to create a crude but effective bridge using fallen trees and interwoven branches. The engineering principles displayed in this construction showed an understanding of basic physics that should have been impossible for any non-human species. The bears even tested the structure's stability before allowing the team to cross. Around 2 in the morning, the search team's radio equipment began picking up unusual interference patterns. Dr. Patel noticed that these disruptions corresponded with specific movements from the bears. It was as if the animals were somehow aware of the team's communication technology and were attempting to interact with it. The pattern of interference, when later analyzed, showed regular repetition that suggested intentional signaling rather than random disruption. The bear's awareness of human technology didn't stop there. When one of the team's GPS devices malfunctioned, Alpha approached the device and began making specific movements that drew attention to nearby geological formations. These landmarks, when checked against satellite data, provided more accurate navigation information than the malfunctioning equipment had been showing. The bear had effectively created a natural backup navigation system. The team's wildlife photographer, David Martinez, captured something on his thermal imaging camera that would later become the subject of intense scientific debate. The bears appeared to be generating and maintaining specific heat patterns within their group formation. This suggested they were actively working to create warm air pockets in the cold night air, a behavior that showed not just intelligence, but an understanding of thermodynamics and group cooperation for environmental modification. As dawn approached, the bears' behavior became even more focused. They began creating what looked like time markers in the soil, using the position of the moon and stars to indicate the passage of time. This demonstrated not just an awareness of time's passage, but an understanding of how to communicate temporal concepts to humans. The sophistication of these markers suggested the bears had been tracking Mason's movements with remarkable precision. The team had also begun noticing patterns in the bears' movements that suggested they were maintaining some form of communication with other groups of animals in the area. Wolves, normally territorial and aggressive toward bears, were observed cooperating in the search effort, responding to specific signals from the bears. Even the local bird population seemed to be participating, with ravens and eagles acting as aerial scouts, their movements clearly coordinated with the bears' ground operations. Dr. Patel's continuous documentation revealed another extraordinary aspect of the bears' behavior. They appeared to be using sophisticated memory mapping techniques, creating physical representations of search areas they had already covered, and marking them with different types of scratches to indicate various types of terrain and conditions. This systematic approach to search and rescue showed a level of organizational intelligence that rivaled human planning capabilities. As the first light of dawn began to illuminate the valley, the bears' behavior shifted into what appeared to be the final phase of their search strategy. Alpha gathered the team's attention with a series of deliberate movements that suggested the crucial moment was approaching. The bears had been leading them to something specific, and whatever it was, they were about to discover that their journey through this extraordinary night was just the beginning of an even more remarkable revelation. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the mountain mist, Alpha's behavior became increasingly urgent. The massive bear began making a series of complex vocalizations that caused the entire network of bears to shift their positions. Dr. Patel's instruments picked up a surge of coordinated activity throughout the forest, as if every animal was responding to some silent command. The morning chorus of birds fell silent, replaced by an expectant hush that seemed to hold the entire valley in suspense. Elizabeth Chen noticed something remarkable about the new formation the bears were creating. They had arranged themselves in a pattern that precisely matched the topographical features of the surrounding terrain. It was as if they had created a living, breathing map of the valley. Each bear's position corresponded to a significant landmark or geographical feature, demonstrating a level of spatial awareness that went far beyond anything previously documented in wildlife behavior. The team's attention was drawn to a series of rhythmic sounds echoing through the valley. Alpha and two other bears had begun striking fallen logs with their paws, creating a complex pattern of vibrations that traveled through the ground. James Morrison's tracking dogs responded immediately, their ears perking up as they processed this unusual form of communication. The percussion sequence, when later analyzed by sound experts, revealed a sophisticated code that incorporated elements of both rhythm and frequency modulation. At precisely 6:47 a.m., something extraordinary happened that would later become the centerpiece of countless scientific studies. Alpha rose to its full height and began a series of movements that perfectly mimicked the American Sign Language signs for child, safe, and follow. Dr. Patel, who had basic knowledge of ASL, stood frozen in disbelief as she recognized these unmistakable gestures. The implications were staggering. Either the bear had observed and learned these signs from humans, or it had independently developed a similar system of gestural communication. The bear's next demonstration of intelligence left even the most hardened skeptics questioning everything they thought they knew about animal cognition. Using rocks, sticks, and their own tracks, they created a complex diagram in the soil that depicted not just the current search area, but a detailed timeline of Mason's movements since his disappearance. Each mark and symbol showed a different aspect of the journey, where he had rested, where he had found water, and most importantly, where he was now. Michael Running Wolf, drawing from his deep knowledge of indigenous tracking methods, recognized elements in the bear's communication that echoed ancient Native American sign systems. The bears weren't just showing them where to go, they were telling a story about how they had been protecting Mason. Their marks in the soil included symbols for weather conditions, potential dangers they had helped him avoid, and even crude representations of the constellations they had used for navigation during the night. The precision of the bears' astronomical knowledge became even more apparent as they began indicating specific times using shadow positions. Alpha would point to various marks on their ground map, then to the sun's position, creating a clear correlation between time and location. This demonstrated not just an understanding of celestial mechanics, but the ability to translate this knowledge into a form humans could comprehend. the search team's equipment began registering unusual electromagnetic activity throughout the search area. The patterns were too regular to be natural phenomena, yet their source couldn't be identified. Dr. Patel's instruments showed that these electromagnetic fluctuations corresponded perfectly with the bear's movements, suggesting they were somehow able to detect and respond to Earth's magnetic field with unprecedented precision. Around 7:15 a.m., the bear's behavior shifted dramatically. Alpha led the team to a small clearing where they discovered something that defied explanation. The ground was covered with intricate patterns made from arranged stones, leaves, and branches. These weren't random formations. They were perfect, geometric shapes, including circles, triangles, and more complex polygons. Each shape seemed to serve as a marker pointing toward a specific location, creating a sophisticated navigational system that incorporated both mathematics and natural materials. The most astonishing revelation came when Dr. Patel photographed these patterns from different angles. When viewed from above, they formed a perfect scale model of the valley's watershed system, complete with markers showing safe drinking water sources. The bears had essentially created a three-dimensional, topographical map that was more accurate than some of the team's own survey equipment. The team's wildlife photographer captured something on film that would later become the subject of intense academic debate. The bears were using reflected sunlight off pools of water to create deliberate light signals. These weren't random reflections. They were coordinated patterns that matched known emergency signal codes. The bears had somehow learned or developed a system of heliographic communication, something that should have been far beyond their cognitive capabilities. As they followed Alpha's lead, the search team noticed that the surrounding forest had been subtly modified. Small barriers had been created to block dangerous paths, while safe routes were marked with consistent signs. What made this even more remarkable was the discovery that these modifications had been made in ways that preserved the natural ecosystem. The bears hadn't just been protecting Mason, they had been doing so while maintaining perfect environmental balance. The bear's next demonstration showed an understanding of human physiology that shocked even the medical experts who would later review the evidence. They began indicating specific plants and water sources, but with different markings for different times of day. Analysis would reveal that these recommendations perfectly matched human metabolic needs. Certain plants for energy in the morning, others for hydration during peak heat, and different ones for maintaining body temperature at night. James Morrison's tracking dogs, which had been working in perfect coordination with the bears, suddenly became extremely excited. Their behavior indicated they had picked up Mason's scent, but instead of rushing forward as they normally would, they looked to Alpha for guidance. The bear responded with a series of gentle vocalizations that seemed to convey specific instructions. The dogs adjusted their position accordingly, demonstrating an unprecedented level of interspecies cooperation in a search and rescue operation. As they approached what appeared to be their final destination, the bears began creating something that would challenge the very foundations of what science thought possible. Using their claws, teeth, and found objects, they constructed a perfect replica of their search area. This three-dimensional model included elevation changes, water sources, and even weather patterns indicated by carefully placed markers. Most remarkably, it included a time-lapse element, showing how these conditions had changed over the past 72 hours. Elizabeth Chen, looking at this incredible display of intelligence and coordination, realized they were witnessing something that went beyond mere animal behavior. These bears weren't just demonstrating problem-solving abilities or even advanced cognitive skills. They were showing evidence of a complex culture and knowledge system that had perhaps existed alongside human civilization for centuries, unrecognized and undocumented. The morning sun had fully illuminated the valley when Alpha made its most dramatic communication yet. The bear began creating a series of marks that, when later decoded, proved to be a precise countdown. Each mark corresponded to a specific measure of distance and time, leading to what the bears clearly knew was their final destination. The search team, following these markings, was about to discover something that would make all these extraordinary demonstrations of intelligence seem like mere preludes to an even more incredible revelation. Following Alpha's countdown markers, the search team approached a natural grotto formed by ancient limestone formations. The morning light filtered through the canopy above, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. What they discovered inside would fundamentally change our understanding of bear intelligence and interspecies cooperation. There, nestled safely in a carefully constructed shelter of woven branches and soft moss, was 8-year-old Mason Thompson. Not just alive, but thriving. The boy's condition defied every expectation of a 72-hour wilderness survival situation. Instead of being frightened, dehydrated, or injured, Mason was alert and remarkably well cared for. His makeshift shelter had been engineered with sophisticated principles of heat retention and ventilation, using techniques that showed an advanced understanding of wilderness survival. The bears had created a microclimate that maintained optimal temperature despite the harsh mountain conditions. As the team approached, they witnessed something extraordinary. Mason was sitting calmly, surrounded by 3 younger bears who appeared to be engaged in what could only be described as play therapy. They were demonstrating various foraging techniques, showing him which berries were safe to eat by carefully separating them into distinct piles. The level of gentleness and awareness they showed in their interactions with the child suggested not just intelligence, but a deep understanding of human fragility and needs. Dr. Patel's cameras captured the moment Mason saw the search team. Instead of running to them immediately, he turned to Alpha and made a series of gestures that the bear seemed to understand perfectly. The massive grizzly responded with a gentle rumble and a nod that appeared almost human in its deliberateness. It was clear that over the past 3 days, Mason and the bears had developed their own system of communication, one that bridged the gap between species in ways that would later revolutionize our understanding of animal-human interaction. Bears' care for Mason went far beyond basic survival. They had created a sophisticated system of nutrition and hydration that perfectly matched a child's needs. Scattered around the shelter were carefully arranged piles of berries, nuts, and edible plants, each grouped according to their nutritional properties. When later analyzed, these food sources were found to provide a nearly perfect balance of calories, vitamins, and minerals necessary for a child's sustenance. Elizabeth Chen noticed something remarkable about the shelter's construction. The bears had incorporated natural materials in ways that served multiple purposes. Aromatic herbs, known for their insect-repelling properties, were woven into the walls. The floor was lined with specific types of moss that naturally resisted bacteria growth. Even the orientation of the shelter had been carefully calculated to maximize sunlight exposure while providing protection from prevailing winds. As Mason began sharing his story with the team, each detail revealed new depths of the bear's intelligence and compassion. He described how they had established a daily routine that included exercise, rest periods, and even basic hygiene practices. The bears had shown him how to clean his hands using specific plants with natural antimicrobial properties, and had demonstrated methods for purifying water using layers of sand and charcoal from their fire pit. The fire pit itself was, perhaps, the most stunning evidence of the bears' capabilities. They had not only gathered appropriate materials and arranged them correctly, but had apparently understood the principle of friction-based fire starting. Mason described watching in amazement as the bears demonstrated how to create sparks using quartz stones, and how they maintained the fire at a safe distance while ensuring it provided adequate warmth. James Morrison's tracking dogs, upon entering the grotto, displayed behavior that suggested they were witnessing something far beyond their training. Instead of maintaining their professional distance, they approached the bears with what could only be described as reverence, their body language showing complete acceptance of the bears as fellow rescue workers. The bears, in turn, acknowledged the dogs with respectful nods, suggesting a deep understanding of their shared purpose. The team's medical assessment of Mason revealed something even more extraordinary. Despite spending 3 days in the wilderness, he showed no signs of exposure, dehydration, or psychological trauma. Instead, he appeared to have undergone what could only be described as an intensive wilderness survival course, taught by the most unlikely of instructors. He could now identify dozens of edible plants, understand weather patterns, and even demonstrate basic navigation using natural markers. Dr. Patel's detailed documentation of the site revealed evidence of sophisticated teaching methodologies. The bears had created what appeared to be practice areas where they had demonstrated various survival skills. There were small pools where they had shown Mason how to test water safety, areas where they had practiced building shelters, and even a crude but effective sundial made from arranged stones that helped track the passage of time. The most remarkable discovery came when the team found a series of marks Mason had been encouraged to make each day. These weren't just random scratches. They were a primitive but effective form of journal keeping with different symbols representing various activities and experiences. The bears had somehow understood the human need to record and track events, and had helped Mason develop a way to document his extraordinary experience. Michael Running Wolf recognized elements in this documentation system that paralleled ancient, indigenous tracking methods. The bears had essentially taught Mason a primitive form of writing, using universal symbols that could convey meaning across species barriers. This suggested not just intelligence, but an understanding of human cognitive processes and the importance of knowledge preservation. As the team prepared to transport Mason back to safety, they observed something that would later become a cornerstone of research into animal empathy. The bears began a series of farewell rituals that showed clear emotional awareness. Each bear that had been involved in Mason's care approached him individually, making specific gestures that seemed to convey different aspects of their shared experience. Alpha's farewell was particularly moving, as the massive bear gently touched its forehead to Mason's in what appeared to be a gesture of blessing. The bear's final demonstration of intelligence came as the team was documenting the sight. They began systematically dismantling certain aspects of the camp while preserving others, clearly indicating which elements they wanted the researchers to study. They were actively participating in the documentation of their own extraordinary behavior, showing an awareness of the scientific process that should have been impossible for non-human animals. Just before leaving the grotto, Mason made a series of gestures to Alpha that he later explained was a promise to return and share what he had learned. The bear's response, captured on multiple cameras, showed what appeared to be clear understanding and agreement. This wasn't just anthropomorphization. The bear demonstrated comprehension through a series of specific movements that correlated with Mason's gestures, suggesting a true bilateral communication system had been established. The implications of what the team had discovered would ripple through the scientific community and beyond. This wasn't just a story of survival or even of animal intelligence. It was evidence of something far more profound. The bears had demonstrated not just the ability to care for a human child, but to teach, to empathize, and to bridge the gap between species in ways that would force us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about consciousness in the natural world. But even as the search team began their journey back to civilization, there were signs that this extraordinary story was far from over. The bear's behavior suggested that what they had witnessed was not an isolated incident, but rather a glimpse into a hidden world of animal intelligence and cross-species cooperation that had existed alongside human civilization for millennia, waiting to be discovered and understood. The journey back to civilization would prove to be just as extraordinary as the rescue itself. As the team prepared to leave the grotto, Alpha and the other bears began organizing what could only be described as an escort formation. The large bears positioned themselves strategically around the group, with younger bears serving as scouts, ahead and behind. This wasn't just protective behavior. It was a sophisticated security operation that demonstrated advanced tactical awareness. During their trek, Dr. Patel observed something unprecedented in the bears' communication methods. They had established a complex relay system, using different vocalizations and body movements to pass information up and down their formation. Each message was acknowledged and confirmed, showing a level of organizational sophistication that rivaled military communication protocols. The bears weren't just moving together. They were maintaining constant situational awareness of their entire environment. Mason, still energized by his extraordinary experience, began sharing more details about his time with the bears. He described how they had taught him to interpret subtle changes in wind patterns, showing him how to detect approaching weather changes by observing cloud formations and animal behavior. The bears had effectively transmitted generations of survival knowledge to a human child in just 3 days, suggesting an understanding of pedagogical principles that should have been impossible for non-human animals. Elizabeth Chen noticed that the bears were actively choosing paths that would be easiest for human feet to traverse, even when more direct routes were available to them. This demonstrated not just an understanding of human physical limitations, but an ability to adapt their own superior capabilities to accommodate others. At several points, they even created impromptu stepping stones across difficult terrain, showing both foresight and engineering awareness. the team's wildlife photographer captured remarkable footage of the bears engaging in what appeared to be intentional documentation of their own. At various points during the journey, certain bears would stop and create specific marks on trees and rocks. When analyzed later, these marks were found to form a complex trail marking system that could theoretically help others retrace their route back to the grotto. Around midday, the group encountered a steep ravine that hadn't been visible on their maps. Before the team could begin planning an alternate route, Alpha and 4 other bears demonstrated something extraordinary, working. In perfect coordination, they began constructing a natural bridge using fallen trees and vines. Their technique showed not just problem-solving ability, but an understanding of basic engineering principles like load distribution and structural support. James Morrison's tracking dogs continued to work in unprecedented harmony with the bears throughout the journey. At one point, when the dogs detected potential danger from a nearby moose, the bears immediately adapted their formation to address the threat. The level of coordination between species suggested that both the bears and dogs were operating with a shared understanding of their protective mission. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the journey was the bears' apparent ability to anticipate and prevent potential problems before they arose. They would adjust their course to avoid areas where the ground appeared stable but wasn't, showing an understanding of geological principles that went beyond simple instinct. Their movements suggested they could detect subtle changes in soil composition and stability that even trained rangers might miss. The bears' awareness of human needs extended to regular rest periods, which they seemed to schedule based on careful observation of the team's energy levels. During these breaks, they would indicate safe water sources and even demonstrate methods for testing water quality using natural indicators like specific plant reactions. Their understanding of human physiology and needs went far beyond what anyone thought possible for non-human animals. Dr. Patel's instruments continued to pick up unusual patterns in the bears' communication. The frequency and complexity of their vocalizations suggested they were sharing far more detailed information than previously thought possible. Analysis of their sound patterns revealed distinct words for different concepts, including directions, warnings, and even abstract ideas like time and distance. Michael Running Wolf recognized elements in their behavior that aligned with ancient stories from his tribe, suggesting that this level of bear intelligence might have been known to indigenous peoples for generations. The bears' methods of marking trails and identifying safe passages matched descriptions in tribal oral histories that had previously been dismissed as mere legends. As they moved through the forest, the team observed the bears actively managing the ecosystem around them. They would quickly repair any disruption their passage caused, replanting disturbed vegetation and carefully maintaining the natural balance of the environment. This showed not just intelligence, but a sophisticated understanding of ecological systems and the importance of environmental stewardship. Mason's interaction with the bears continued to reveal new depths of their intelligence. He had learned to recognize different vocalizations for various concepts, and the bears would respond to his attempts to mimic their sounds with what appeared to be gentle corrections, much like teachers helping a student with pronunciation. This suggested not just the ability to communicate, but to actively teach their communication system to others. The bears' problem-solving abilities were further demonstrated when they encountered a fallen tree blocking their path. Instead of simply finding another route, they worked together to create a pulley system using vines and leverage points, effectively engineering a solution that allowed them to move the obstacle. This showed not just tool use, but an understanding of mechanical advantage principles. By late afternoon, the team's electronic equipment began malfunctioning due to unexpected electromagnetic interference. The bears, showing remarkable adaptability, immediately shifted to using purely natural navigation methods, demonstrating techniques for orientation that combined celestial observation with landscape features. Their ability to switch between different navigation systems suggested a level of cognitive flexibility previously unknown in non-human species. Elizabeth Chen noticed that the bears were actively teaching these navigation methods to their younger members during the journey. The adult bears would pause at specific points to demonstrate how to read terrain features and celestial positions, showing a commitment to passing on knowledge that suggested a sophisticated understanding of education and cultural transmission. The most extraordinary moment came when they encountered another group of hikers. Instead of retreating or showing aggression, the bears calmly maintained their protective formation, while Alpha made a series of gestures that seemed designed to reassure both the hikers and the search team. This demonstrated not just emotional intelligence, but an understanding of human social dynamics and the need to manage potentially stressful situations. As they neared the edge of the wilderness area, the bears began showing signs of preparing for their departure. They created what appeared to be a detailed map in the soil, marking safe routes and danger zones, effectively creating a guide for future navigation through their territory. This final act of sharing knowledge demonstrated their understanding of the importance of preserving and transmitting information. The bears' farewell ritual showed evidence of emotional depth that would challenge our understanding of animal consciousness. Each bear approached Mason and the team members in turn, making specific gestures that appeared to convey different aspects of their shared experience. The level of individualization in these gestures suggested not just intelligence, but personal awareness and emotional sophistication. But even as they prepared to part ways, there were signs that this extraordinary interaction between species was far from over. The bears' behavior suggested they were not just saying goodbye, but establishing the groundwork for future communication and cooperation. They had opened a door between their world and ours, and what lay beyond that threshold would continue to amaze and challenge our understanding of the natural world. As Mason and the search team emerged from the wilderness, they found themselves at the center of what would become one of the most significant scientific investigations in the history of animal behavior studies. News of their extraordinary experience spread rapidly, drawing researchers, wildlife experts from around the globe. The evidence they had gathered would challenge fundamental assumptions about animal intelligence and consciousness in ways that no one could have predicted. Dr. Patel's extensive documentation immediately caught the attention of leading cognitive scientists and animal behaviorists. Her recordings revealed patterns of bear communication that went far beyond anything previously documented. Spectrographic analysis of the bear's vocalizations showed structured patterns suggesting a sophisticated language system, complete with syntax and contextual variations. The bears weren't just making sounds, they were engaging in complex dialogue with specific grammatical rules. The team's photographic evidence sparked intense academic debate. The images of the bears creating mathematical and astronomical symbols challenged existing theories about the cognitive capabilities of non-human species. The precision and intentionality displayed in their movements suggested not just learned behavior, but a deep understanding of abstract concepts. Particularly striking were the sequences showing the bears teaching these concepts to their younger members, demonstrating a sophisticated system of knowledge transmission. Elizabeth Chen's detailed reports of the bears' protective strategies attracted attention from military and search and rescue organizations worldwide. The bears had displayed tactical awareness and coordination that rivaled trained human teams. Their ability to maintain formation, establish secure perimeters, and adapt to changing conditions showed evidence of strategic thinking that went beyond instinctual behavior. The Pentagon even assigned a special research team to study the bears' methods for potential applications in wilderness operations. Mason's medical examination revealed something equally remarkable. The boy's physical condition showed evidence of having received what amounted to professional-level wilderness survival training. Blood tests indicated optimal hydration and nutrition levels, while his skin showed no signs of exposure or environmental damage. The bears had somehow managed to provide care that matched or exceeded human medical protocols for wilderness survival situations. Michael Running Wolf's anthropological insights provided crucial context for understanding the bears' behavior. His research revealed ancient indigenous accounts of similar bear interactions, suggesting that this level of ursine intelligence might have been known to native peoples for generations. These historical records included detailed descriptions of bears acting as guardians and teachers, accounts that had previously been dismissed as folklore, but now demanded serious scientific consideration. The bears' engineering capabilities became a subject of intense study, structural engineers examining the bridges and shelters they had created found evidence of sophisticated design principles. The use of counterweights, tension distribution, and material selection showed an understanding of physical forces that went beyond trial and error. The bears had demonstrated knowledge of architectural concepts that some human societies took centuries to develop. Perhaps most intriguing were the bears' astronomical observations. Their use of celestial navigation and ability to track time using solar and stellar positions suggested a grasp of astronomical principles that challenged our understanding of animal cognition. The star maps they had created showed accuracy that rivaled early human astronomical charts, indicating both observational skills and the ability to translate three-dimensional celestial movement into two-dimensional representations. James Morrison's documentation of the interaction between his tracking dogs and the bears opened new avenues of research into interspecies cooperation. The bears had demonstrated the ability to understand and work within the protocols of professional search and rescue operations, suggesting a level of adaptive intelligence previously thought impossible. Their coordination with the dogs showed evidence of strategic planning and role assignment that indicated advanced social cognition. The environmental awareness displayed by the bears attracted particular attention from conservation scientists. Their careful maintenance of the ecosystem, including repair of disturbed vegetation and protection of water sources, showed a sophisticated understanding of environmental balance. The bears weren't just surviving in their environment, they were actively managing and preserving it in ways that suggested long-term planning and ecological awareness. Dr. Sarah Collins, a leading primatologist brought in to analyze the evidence, identified behavioral patterns that exceeded even the most advanced documented cases of great ape intelligence. The bears had demonstrated not just tool use, but tool creation and modification. They had shown the ability to teach complex concepts to both their own species and to humans, suggesting a level of cognitive flexibility previously unknown in non-primate species. The bear's system of symbolic communication became a focal point of linguistic research. Their use of physical markers and gestures showed evidence of semantic understanding and symbolic representation. The marks they had created weren't just signs. They formed a complex system of meaningful symbols that could convey abstract concepts across species barriers. This suggested a form of proto-writing that challenged theories about the uniqueness of human symbolic thinking. Mason's ability to learn and retain the bear's teachings provided valuable insights into cross-species knowledge transfer. He had acquired complex survival skills in just 3 days, suggesting the bears had developed highly effective teaching methods. Their ability to break down complex concepts into learnable components showed evidence of pedagogical understanding that rivaled human teaching techniques. The discovery of the bear's mathematical knowledge prompted new research into animal numeracy. Their geometric constructions and spatial arrangements showed evidence of understanding mathematical principles that went beyond simple counting. The precision of their measurements and their ability to create scale models suggested comprehension of proportional relationships and spatial geometry. Neurobiologists studying the brain scans of bears in the region found unexpected patterns of neural activity. The bears showed activation in brain regions associated with complex problem-solving and social cognition, areas previously thought to be developed only in primates and certain marine mammals. This suggested their cognitive capabilities might have evolved along a parallel but equally sophisticated path to human intelligence. The bear's emotional intelligence became a particular focus of study. Their ability to recognize and respond to human emotional states, provide appropriate comfort and support, and maintain calm in crisis situations suggested a level of empathy and emotional awareness that revolutionized our understanding of animal consciousness. Their careful handling of Mason's psychological well-being during his ordeal showed evidence of understanding human emotional needs. But even as the scientific community worked to understand these extraordinary discoveries, there were signs that the bear's influence was spreading. Reports began emerging from other wilderness areas of bears displaying similar behaviors, suggesting that this level of intelligence wasn't isolated to one group, but might represent a broader phenomenon that had gone unnoticed by modern science. The implications of these discoveries would reach far beyond the scientific community, challenging our fundamental understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and the relationship between human and animal cognition. The bears had demonstrated not just the ability to think and reason, but to understand and bridge the gap between species, suggesting possibilities that would continue to amaze and challenge our understanding of the natural world. In the months following Mason's rescue, a series of extraordinary events began unfolding across North America's wilderness areas. The bears from Glacier National Park had apparently begun sharing their knowledge with other bear populations, creating a ripple effect that would transform our understanding of animal intelligence and interspecies cooperation. Reports started flooding in from rangers, hikers, and wilderness guides describing bear behavior that mirrored the remarkable capabilities first observed during Mason's rescue. Dr. Patel established a permanent research station near the original rescue site, where she documented an unprecedented phenomenon. The bears were actively seeking ways to communicate with human researchers, using increasingly sophisticated methods to share information. They began creating complex environmental maps that not only showed terrain features, but also tracked wildlife movements, weather patterns, and potential hazards, demonstrating both their extensive knowledge and their desire to share it. Elizabeth Chen's ranger team observed something even more remarkable in their daily patrols. Bears across the park system had started establishing what could only be described as safety networks. They would station themselves at strategic points along popular hiking trails, subtly guiding visitors away from dangerous areas and towards safe routes. Their methods showed not just concern for human safety, but an understanding of how to influence human behavior without causing panic or alarm. The most striking development came when Mason returned to the park for a supervised visit. 3 months after his rescue, Alpha and the other bears had prepared what appeared to be an elaborate demonstration of their knowledge. They had created a series of learning stations throughout their territory, each designed to teach different aspects of wilderness survival and natural history. This wasn't just a display of intelligence, it was a deliberately constructed curriculum. Wildlife biologists studying the region documented an extraordinary change in the ecosystem's dynamics. The bears had begun actively managing their environment in ways that benefited multiple species. They were observed creating water collection systems during dry periods, establishing food caches that smaller animals could access, and even mediating territorial disputes between different species. Their actions showed an understanding of ecological balance that went beyond mere survival instinct. Michael Runningwolf's research into indigenous knowledge revealed something fascinating about the bears' historical relationship with humans. Ancient petroglyphs and oral histories suggested that this level of ursine intelligence had once been widely known and respected by native peoples. The bears weren't developing new capabilities. They were revealing ancient ones that modern society had forgotten or dismissed. The bears' mathematical abilities continued to astound researchers. They began creating increasingly complex geometric patterns in clearings using natural materials to demonstrate mathematical principles. These weren't random arrangements. They showed understanding of concepts like the golden ratio, fractal patterns, and even basic principles of calculus. The bears were effectively teaching advanced mathematics using only natural materials. James Morrison's K9 unit reported unprecedented developments in interspecies cooperation. The bears had begun actively collaborating with search and rescue dogs throughout the park system, creating a sophisticated network for locating and assisting lost hikers. They showed an ability to understand and work within human emergency response protocols, effectively becoming unofficial members of wilderness rescue teams. Dr. Sarah Collins documented remarkable instances of bears teaching other animals. They were observed demonstrating survival techniques to various species, from showing wolves safer hunting methods to teaching smaller animals how to find water during dry seasons. This cross-species education suggested a level of cognitive sophistication that challenged every existing theory about animal intelligence. The bear's influence on the scientific community led to the establishment of the Interspecies Communication Initiative, a groundbreaking research program dedicated to understanding and documenting their extraordinary capabilities. Researchers from diverse fields, linguistics, mathematics, engineering, and psychology, worked together to decode the increasingly complex ways the bears were attempting to share their knowledge. Perhaps most remarkable was the bear's growing sophistication in astronomical observation. They began creating elaborate celestial calendars, using natural materials to track seasonal changes and celestial events with surprising accuracy. Their methods incorporated both Western astronomical principles and indigenous star knowledge, suggesting an ability to synthesize different knowledge systems. The environmental impact of the bear's activities became increasingly evident. Areas under their influence showed improved ecosystem health, better water quality, and more stable wildlife populations. They had effectively become environmental engineers, using their intelligence to maintain and improve their habitat in ways that benefited the entire ecosystem. Mason's continued interaction with the bears revealed new depths to their teaching abilities. During supervised visits, they demonstrated increasingly sophisticated methods of wilderness navigation, weather prediction, and botanical knowledge. Their teaching style showed an understanding of human learning processes, adapting their methods to make complex concepts accessible to human understanding. The bears' problem-solving abilities reached new levels of complexity. They began developing solutions to environmental challenges that showed evidence of long-term planning and strategic thinking. When a crucial salmon stream was threatened by erosion, they engineered a sophisticated system of natural dams and water channels that not only solved the immediate problem, but improved the stream's long-term sustainability. Their communication methods continued to evolve, showing evidence of an emerging symbolic language that combined elements of gesture, vocalization, and environmental marking. Linguists studying these developments found patterns suggesting the bears were creating a bridge language designed specifically for cross-species communication. The most profound changes were observed in the bears' social structure. They had developed a complex system of knowledge sharing and specialization, with different bears taking on specific roles in their community. Some focused on teaching, others on engineering, while others specialized in healing and medical knowledge. This division of labor showed evidence of sophisticated social organization previously unknown in non-human species. Park officials reported a transformation in human-wildlife interactions throughout the region. The bears' influence had created a new model of coexistence, where humans and animals shared space with unprecedented harmony. Visitors to the park began reporting extraordinary experiences of guided exploration, where bears would subtly lead them to spectacular vistas or rare natural phenomena. The bears' healing knowledge became a subject of intense scientific interest. They were observed using specific plants and minerals for medicinal purposes, showing an understanding of natural pharmacy that paralleled traditional human medicine. Their methods of treating injuries and illnesses in both their own species and others suggested a sophisticated understanding of anatomy and healing. But perhaps the most significant development was the bears' apparent effort to document their own knowledge for future generations. They began creating what researchers called memory sites, locations where they would systematically record information about their environment, history, and discoveries using a complex system of natural markers and symbols. These sites appeared to serve as libraries of ursine knowledge, preserving information for future transmission. As the first year after Mason's rescue drew to a close, it became clear that what had begun as an extraordinary rescue story had evolved into something far more significant. The bears were not just demonstrating remarkable intelligence, they were actively working to bridge the gap between human and animal consciousness, showing us possibilities for interspecies cooperation and understanding that would continue to unfold in remarkable ways. The scientific community's understanding of bear intelligence took another dramatic turn when researchers discovered that the bear's influence had begun spreading far beyond the boundaries of Glacier National Park. Reports from wildlife observers across North America revealed a pattern of increasingly sophisticated behavior among bear populations, suggesting a form of cultural transmission that defied conventional explanation. The bears weren't just sharing knowledge, they were actively establishing a network of intelligence that would reshape our understanding of animal consciousness. During the winter months, Dr. Patel's research team documented an unprecedented phenomenon. The bears, instead of entering traditional hibernation, maintained a level of activity that suggested they had developed methods to regulate their metabolism in ways previously thought impossible. They were observed creating insulated shelters that incorporated complex ventilation systems, demonstrating an understanding of thermodynamics that challenged existing theories about animal engineering capabilities. Elizabeth Chen's Ranger Unit recorded something even more remarkable during their winter patrols. The bears had begun establishing what appeared to be educational centers in various cave systems throughout the park. These locations showed evidence of organized knowledge, sharing with different areas dedicated to specific subjects ranging from astronomy to botany. The physical arrangement of these spaces suggested a deliberate pedagogical approach to information transfer. Mason's winter visit to the park revealed new depths to the bears' teaching abilities. Despite the harsh conditions, they had prepared elaborate demonstrations of winter survival techniques, showing methods for finding food, maintaining body temperature, and navigating in severe weather. Their ability to adapt their teaching methods to winter conditions showed both intelligence and pedagogical flexibility that surpassed previous observations. The bears' mathematical knowledge continued to evolve in surprising ways. They began creating snow formations that demonstrated complex geometric principles, using the natural properties of ice and snow to illustrate concepts of crystallography and structural engineering. These weren't just random patterns. They showed an understanding of mathematical principles that some researchers compared to advanced human architectural theories. Michael Runningwolf's ongoing research uncovered ancient winter ceremonies that perfectly match the bears' current behavior patterns. These historical records suggested that the bears' winter activities weren't new developments, but rather the re-emergence of ancient knowledge systems that had been preserved through generations of ursine culture. The parallels between indigenous wisdom and bear behavior became increasingly difficult to dismiss as coincidence. James Morrison's K9 unit observed remarkable developments in winter rescue operations. The bears had begun teaching the search dogs specialized techniques for locating people trapped in avalanches. Their methods showed an understanding of snow physics and rescue protocols that went beyond instinctual behavior, demonstrating both problem-solving ability and adaptability to emergency situations. The bear's influence on other wildlife species became particularly evident during the winter months. They were observed organizing cooperative hunting strategies with wolf packs, showing smaller animals how to access food sources beneath the snow, and even creating sheltered areas that multiple species could use during severe weather. This level of interspecies cooperation suggested a form of ecological leadership previously unknown in the animal kingdom. Dr. Sarah Collins documented extraordinary instances of the bears using ice and snow as tools for communication. They had developed a system of marking snowbanks with complex symbols that could convey information about weather patterns, food sources, and safe travel routes. These snow signs showed evidence of symbolic thinking that challenged existing theories about animal cognition. The Interspecies Communication Initiative recorded breakthrough moments in understanding the bears' winter communication methods. The bears had begun using ice formations to create acoustic amplification systems, effectively establishing a long-range communication network that could transmit information across vast distances. This demonstrated both technological innovation and an understanding of sound physics. The bears' astronomical observations took on new significance during the winter months. They were observed creating elaborate ice prisms that could track the movement of stars and planets, showing an understanding of both optics and celestial mechanics. Their methods for using the winter sky for navigation demonstrated knowledge that rivaled ancient human astronomical traditions. Park officials noted a transformation in winter wildlife management practices based on the bears' influence. The animals had developed sophisticated systems for resource distribution during scarce winter months, ensuring that various species could survive through cooperative rather than competitive strategies. This showed evidence of long-term planning and ecological awareness that went beyond immediate survival needs. Mason's continued documentation of his interactions with the bears revealed new insights into their teaching methodology. They had developed ways to demonstrate complex concepts using winter conditions as teaching tools, showing an understanding of how to adapt their communication methods to different environmental contexts. Their ability to convey abstract ideas through practical demonstration showed remarkable pedagogical sophistication. The bears' engineering capabilities reached new levels of complexity in their winter adaptations. They were observed creating snow structures that incorporated principles of thermal dynamics, using packed snow and air pockets to create insulated spaces that could maintain stable temperatures. These structures showed evidence of architectural planning that combined practical function with mathematical precision. Their healing knowledge expanded to include specialized winter treatments. The bears demonstrated methods for using snow and ice for medical purposes, showing understanding of both traditional and innovative healing techniques. Their ability to adapt their medical knowledge to winter conditions suggested both practical wisdom and scientific understanding. The most significant development came in their creation of winter knowledge preservation systems. The bears had begun creating permanent records of their winter survival techniques using methods that could survive the spring thaw. These information storage systems showed evidence of long-term planning and an understanding of the importance of preserving knowledge. Across seasons, the bears' influence on human winter activities in the park led to the development of new safety protocols. They had effectively become unofficial winter safety guides, subtly directing visitors away from dangerous areas and towards safe routes. Their ability to predict and prevent winter accidents showed both intelligence and a deep concern for human welfare. Dr. Patel's team documented remarkable instances of the bears teaching winter survival skills to other bear populations. This knowledge transfer wasn't limited to their immediate group, but spread through complex networks of bear communities, suggesting a sophisticated system of cultural transmission that spanned vast geographical areas. The bears' winter behavior contributed to a broader transformation in scientific understanding of animal intelligence. Their activities showed evidence of planning, teaching, and innovation that went beyond what was previously thought possible in non-human species. Each new observation added to a growing body of evidence that suggested animal consciousness was far more complex than traditional science had recognized. As winter progressed, the bears' influence continued to expand, creating new paradigms of understanding between humans and wildlife. Their demonstration of intelligence, compassion, and ecological awareness during the harshest season of the year showed not just survival ability, but a sophisticated approach to life that would continue to challenge and expand our understanding of the natural world. As spring returned to Glacier National Park, the bears' extraordinary influence entered a new phase of development that would further challenge scientific understanding. The changing season brought with it revelations about their capabilities that would make their winter achievements seem like mere preludes. What emerged was a sophisticated system of environmental management and interspecies cooperation that would revolutionize our understanding of animal intelligence. Dr. Patel's research team documented an unprecedented springtime phenomenon. The bears had begun orchestrating what could only be described as ecological restoration projects. They were systematically rehabilitating areas damaged by winter storms, using complex engineering techniques to prevent erosion, restore water flows, and re-establish plant communities. Their methods showed not just understanding of environmental processes, but long-term planning for ecosystem health. Elizabeth Chen's rangers observed something remarkable during their spring patrols. The bears had established what appeared to be teaching centers at key locations throughout the park, where they would demonstrate various aspects of spring survival and ecological management to both their own species and others. These locations showed evidence of careful organization, with different areas dedicated to specific subjects ranging from plant identification to weather prediction. Mason's spring visit to the park revealed new depths to the bears' communication abilities. They had developed a sophisticated system of signals using spring flowers and plants, arranging them in patterns that conveyed specific messages about environmental conditions, safe travel routes, and available resources. This botanical communication system showed evidence of symbolic thinking that challenged existing theories about animal cognition. The bears' mathematical knowledge found new expression in their spring activities. They began creating geometric patterns using newly grown plants and natural materials, demonstrating principles of sacred geometry and mathematical relationships found in nature. These living mathematical demonstrations showed understanding of concepts that some researchers compared to advanced human theoretical frameworks. Michael Runningwolf's research uncovered ancient spring ceremonies that perfectly aligned with the bears' current activities. These historical records suggested that the bears' spring behavior patterns were part of an ancient knowledge system that had been preserved through generations of ursine culture, parallel to but independent from human traditions. James Morrison's E9 unit witnessed extraordinary developments in spring search and rescue operations. The bears had begun teaching specialized techniques for navigating the challenging conditions created by spring thaws and flooding. Their methods showed understanding of hydraulics and terrain assessment that went beyond instinctual behavior. The bears' influence on other wildlife species reached new levels of sophistication during the spring migration season. They were observed coordinating with migratory birds, creating safe rest stops and feeding areas along traditional flyways. This interspecies cooperation showed evidence of complex planning and understanding of multiple species' needs. Dr. Sarah Collins documented remarkable instances of the bears using spring phenomena for educational purposes. They had developed methods for teaching concepts about plant life cycles, water systems, and seasonal changes using practical demonstrations in the awakening ecosystem. Their teaching methods showed understanding of both scientific principles and effective pedagogical techniques. The Interspecies Communication Initiative recorded breakthrough moments in understanding the bears' spring vocalization patterns. They had developed specific calls that could convey complex information about environmental conditions, potential hazards, and resource locations. This sophisticated audio communication system showed evidence of linguistic structure previously thought impossible in non-human species. The bears' astronomical observations took on new significance during the spring equinox. They created elaborate demonstrations of celestial mechanics using natural materials, showing how celestial positions related to seasonal changes and weather patterns. Their methods for teaching these concepts to other species showed remarkable ability to translate complex ideas into understandable demonstrations. Park officials noted a transformation in spring wildlife management practices based on the bears' influence. The animals had developed sophisticated systems for managing the spring abundance, ensuring fair distribution of resources among different species. This showed evidence of social organization and resource management that went beyond typical animal behavior. Mason's continued documentation of his interactions with the bears revealed new insights into their emotional intelligence. They showed remarkable ability to recognize and respond to different emotional states in both humans and other animals, offering appropriate support and guidance in various situations. This emotional awareness challenged existing theories about animal consciousness. The bears' engineering capabilities found new expression in their spring construction projects. They were observed creating sophisticated water management systems that could prevent flooding while ensuring adequate distribution of water to different ecosystems. These projects showed understanding of hydrological principles that rivaled human engineering knowledge. Their healing knowledge expanded to include specialized spring treatments using newly available plants and minerals. The bears demonstrated sophisticated understanding of natural medicine, showing other animals which plants could treat various ailments and how to prepare them effectively. Their medical knowledge showed evidence of both traditional wisdom and innovative adaptation. The most significant development came in their creation of spring education programs for young animals of various species. The bears had established what could only be described as natural schools, where they would teach essential survival skills, environmental awareness, and social cooperation to young animals from different species. This cross-species education system showed remarkable understanding of different learning needs and capabilities. Dr. Patel's team documented extraordinary instances of the bears teaching spring navigation techniques to other animals. They had developed methods for helping different species understand and use natural landmarks, celestial positions, and environmental cues for orientation. This knowledge sharing showed evidence of advanced cognitive abilities and teaching skills. The bears' influence on human-wildlife interactions led to the development of new approaches to conservation. They had effectively created a model of cooperative, environmental stewardship that challenged traditional approaches to wildlife management. Their methods showed how different species could work together to maintain ecosystem health. Park rangers observed the bears creating sophisticated systems for monitoring and maintaining spring plant growth. They would identify and protect vulnerable plant species, ensure proper pollination conditions, and manage water distribution to support optimal growth. This botanical knowledge showed understanding of complex ecological relationships and long-term environmental planning. The bears' spring activities contributed to a broader transformation in scientific understanding of animal intelligence. Their demonstrations of planning, teaching, and environmental management showed cognitive capabilities that went far beyond what was previously thought possible. Each new observation added to growing evidence that animal consciousness was far more sophisticated than traditional science had recognized. As spring progressed, the bears' influence continued to expand, creating new paradigms of understanding between humans and wildlife. Their demonstration of intelligence, compassion, and ecological awareness during this season of renewal showed not just survival ability, but a sophisticated approach to life that would continue to challenge and expand our understanding of the natural world. 1 year after Mason's extraordinary rescue, the scientific community gathered for an unprecedented symposium at Glacier National Park. The conference, titled Ursine Intelligence and Interspecies Cooperation, brought together researchers, wildlife experts, and indigenous knowledge keepers from around the world. What they would witness during this gathering would transcend even their most ambitious expectations, as the bears prepared to demonstrate capabilities that would challenge the very foundations of our understanding of consciousness. The opening day of the symposium coincided with Alpha's orchestration of what appeared to be a deliberate demonstration of advanced cognitive abilities. The massive bear had gathered dozens of others from across the park's territory, creating what Dr. Patel would later describe as a university of the wild. Each bear appeared to have a specialized role in the demonstration, showing evidence of organized knowledge sharing that rivaled human educational systems. Elizabeth Chen's ranger team documented an extraordinary series of presentations by the bears. They had created elaborate natural classrooms throughout the park, each dedicated to different aspects of wilderness knowledge. These spaces showed sophisticated understanding of pedagogical principles, with carefully arranged materials and demonstrations designed to convey complex concepts to both human and animal observers. Mason, now 9 years old, played a crucial role in bridging the communication gap between the bears and the scientific observers. His year of interaction with the bears had given him insights into their methods of knowledge transmission that proved invaluable to the researchers. The bears seemed to recognize his role, often using him as a demonstration partner when showing particularly complex concepts. The bears' mathematical demonstrations left the gathered mathematicians and physicists in stunned silence. Using natural materials, they created perfect representations of advanced mathematical concepts, including the Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, and even principles of quantum mechanics. Their ability to demonstrate these abstract concepts through practical, natural examples challenged existing theories about the limitations of animal cognition. Michael Running Wolf's presentation of historical records took on new significance, as the bears demonstrated behaviors that perfectly matched ancient indigenous descriptions. The parallels between their current activities and centuries-old accounts suggested a continuous tradition of ursine intelligence that had been preserved despite human civilization's encroachment on their territories. James Morrison's K9 unit participated in a remarkable demonstration of interspecies emergency response protocols. The bears orchestrated complex rescue scenarios, showing how different species could work together in crisis situations. Their methods incorporated sophisticated understanding of various species' strengths and limitations, creating a model of cooperative emergency response that surpassed existing human systems. The symposium's focus on environmental management revealed the bears' extraordinary influence on the park's ecosystem. They had developed systems for maintaining ecological balance that showed deep understanding of complex environmental relationships. Their methods of resource distribution and habitat maintenance demonstrated principles of sustainable management that environmental scientists found revolutionary. Dr. Sarah Collins documented the bears' presentation of healing techniques that combined traditional knowledge with innovative applications. They demonstrated sophisticated understanding of plant medicine, physical therapy, and preventive care that challenged existing perspectives on animal medical knowledge. Their healing practices showed evidence of both empirical observation and intuitive understanding of biological processes. The Interspecies Communication Initiative recorded breakthrough moments in understanding the bears' complex language system. During the symposium, the bears demonstrated what appeared to be a deliberately constructed bridge language designed to facilitate communication between different species. This communication system showed evidence of grammatical structure and symbolic reasoning previously thought impossible in non-human species. The bears' astronomical knowledge proved particularly fascinating to the gathered scientists. They had created elaborate natural observatories that could track celestial movements with remarkable precision. Their methods of teaching celestial navigation and weather prediction showed understanding of astronomical principles that rivaled ancient human astronomical traditions. Park officials presented evidence of the bears' influence on park management practices over the past year. The animals had effectively created a model of cooperative wildlife management that had resulted in improved ecosystem health, reduced human-wildlife conflicts, and more effective conservation outcomes. Their system showed sophisticated understanding of both ecological and social dynamics. Mason's ongoing documentation of his interactions with the bears revealed new dimensions of their emotional intelligence. They showed remarkable ability to recognize and respond to complex emotional states, offering support and guidance tailored to individual needs. This emotional awareness extended beyond their own species, showing understanding of emotional dynamics across species barriers. The bears' engineering capabilities were demonstrated through a series of construction projects throughout the park. They showed sophisticated understanding of structural principles, water management, and sustainable design. Their ability to create complex structures using only natural materials challenged existing assumptions about animal tool use and construction abilities. The symposium's focus on knowledge preservation revealed the bears' sophisticated systems for transmitting information across generations. They had created what researchers termed natural archives, using various environmental markers and teaching methods to ensure their knowledge would survive and spread. This system of knowledge preservation showed understanding of both practical skills and abstract concepts. The most significant revelation came during presentations on cross-species education. The bears had developed methods for teaching complex concepts to various species, adapting their techniques to match different learning capabilities. This educational system showed evidence of advanced cognitive abilities and deep understanding of different species' needs and capabilities. Dr. Patel's team presented evidence of the bear's influence spreading to other wilderness areas across North America. Reports from various national parks and wildlife preserves showed similar patterns of sophisticated bear behavior emerging, suggesting a network of knowledge transmission that spanned the continent. This cultural transmission showed evidence of organized information sharing that challenged existing theories about animal culture. The bears' demonstration of problem-solving abilities during the symposium revealed new depths to their cognitive capabilities. They showed ability to analyze complex situations, develop innovative solutions, and teach these methods to others. Their problem-solving approach showed evidence of both analytical thinking and creative innovation. As the symposium drew to a close, the bears orchestrated a final demonstration that would leave an indelible mark on all who witnessed it. They created an elaborate presentation that combined all aspects of their knowledge, mathematical, astronomical, ecological, and social, into a unified demonstration of intelligence and cooperation that transcended species boundaries. This final display showed not just individual capabilities, but a coherent system of knowledge that suggested a form of consciousness far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. The implications of the symposium's findings would continue to ripple through the scientific community and beyond, challenging fundamental assumptions about animal intelligence and consciousness. The bears had demonstrated not just individual skills, but a comprehensive system of knowledge and understanding that would force humans to re-evaluate their place in the natural world. In the months following the groundbreaking symposium, a series of events unfolded that would further transform our understanding of the bear's extraordinary capabilities. What began as scientific documentation evolved into a movement that would reshape humanity's relationship with the natural world. The bear's influence had begun spreading far beyond the boundaries of Glacier National Park, creating ripples of change that would touch every aspect of human-wildlife interaction. Dr. Patel's research team discovered that the bears had begun establishing what could only be described as cultural exchange centers throughout the Rocky Mountain Range. These locations served as meeting points where different bear populations would gather to share knowledge, techniques, and innovations. The sophistication of these exchanges suggested a level of cultural development that paralleled early human civilizations. Elizabeth Chen's rangers documented an unprecedented phenomenon in wildlife behavior patterns. The bears had started organizing what appeared to be systematic teaching sessions for other species, demonstrating everything from safe migration routes to sustainable foraging techniques. These cross-species educational gatherings showed evidence of planned curriculum and adaptive teaching methods that accounted for different species' learning capabilities. Mason's continuing role in the bears' educational activities revealed new dimensions of their teaching abilities. They had developed methods for translating complex concepts across species barriers, using universal examples from nature to convey sophisticated ideas. Their ability to adapt their teaching methods to different learning styles showed pedagogical understanding that rivaled human educational theory. The bears' mathematical knowledge continued to evolve in ways that challenged conventional understanding. They began creating elaborate natural calculators using arrangements of stones and sticks, demonstrating ability to perform complex calculations through physical manipulation of objects. These tools showed understanding of mathematical principles that some researchers compared to ancient computing devices. Michael Running-Wolf's ongoing research uncovered deeper connections between the bears' knowledge systems and ancient indigenous wisdom. The parallels between their teaching methods and traditional native educational practices suggested a shared understanding of natural law that transcended species boundaries. These connections provided new insights into the historical relationship between humans and wildlife. James Morrison's K9 unit reported extraordinary developments in emergency response coordination. The bears had begun organizing multi-species rescue teams, teaching different animals to work together in crisis situations. Their methods showed sophisticated understanding of each species' capabilities and how to combine them effectively for common goals. The bears' influence on ecosystem management reached new levels of complexity. They had developed systems for maintaining environmental balance that incorporated the needs of multiple species while ensuring sustainable resource use. Their methods showed understanding of ecological principles that environmental scientists found revolutionary. Dr. Sarah Collins documented remarkable instances of the bears teaching preventive healthcare to other animals. They demonstrated sophisticated understanding of disease prevention, wound care, and dietary balance, showing other species how to maintain health through natural means. Their medical knowledge combined practical skills with deep understanding of biological processes. The Interspecies Communication Initiative recorded breakthrough moments in understanding the bears' expanding communication network. They had developed methods for transmitting complex information across vast distances using a combination of physical markers, vocalizations, and natural signals. This communication system showed evidence of evolving linguistic complexity that challenged existing theories about animal language. The bears' astronomical knowledge found new expression in their creation of sophisticated calendar systems. They demonstrated ability to track and predict celestial events with remarkable accuracy, using this knowledge to coordinate activities across different animal populations. Their methods showed understanding of astronomical principles that some researchers compared to ancient human astronomical traditions. Park officials observed transformation in wildlife social structures throughout the region. The bears' influence had led to development of cooperative systems that reduced conflict between species while improving resource distribution. These social changes showed evidence of sophisticated understanding of group dynamics and conflict resolution. Mason's documentation of emotional interactions between species revealed new depths to the bears' empathetic capabilities. They showed remarkable ability to recognize and respond to emotional needs across species boundaries, providing appropriate support and guidance in various situations. This emotional intelligence challenged existing theories about limitations of animal consciousness. The bears' engineering projects expanded to include sophisticated environmental modifications that benefited multiple species. They created systems for water management, shelter construction, and food storage that showed understanding of long-term planning and sustainable resource use. Their construction methods demonstrated principles of engineering that some researchers compared to human architectural developments. The most significant development came in their creation of what researchers termed wisdom repositories, locations where they actively preserved and shared knowledge across species boundaries. These natural libraries showed evidence of organized information storage and retrieval systems that challenged existing theories about animal learning and memory. Dr. Patel's team documented extraordinary instances of bears teaching complex problem-solving strategies to other animals. They demonstrated ability to break down complicated challenges into manageable steps, showing other species how to approach challenges systematically. Their teaching methods showed understanding of cognitive development that rivaled human educational theories. The bears' influence on wildlife rehabilitation practices led to development of new approaches to animal care. They had begun showing injured animals how to use natural remedies and therapeutic techniques, demonstrating understanding of healing. Processes that combined traditional knowledge with innovative applications. Park rangers observed the bears creating sophisticated systems for weather prediction and natural disaster preparation. They developed methods for warning other animals about approaching storms or environmental hazards, showing understanding of meteorological patterns that helped multiple species prepare for changing conditions. The bears' impact on scientific understanding of animal intelligence continued to expand through their demonstrations of abstract thinking and problem-solving abilities. They showed capability to analyze complex situations, develop innovative solutions, and teach these methods to others. Their cognitive abilities challenged fundamental assumptions about limitations of animal consciousness. As their influence spread, the bears began showing evidence of cultural development that paralleled human social evolution. They created systems for knowledge preservation, social organization, and resource management that showed sophisticated understanding of community development and long-term planning. The implications of these developments continued to ripple through scientific and conservation communities, challenging traditional approaches to wildlife management and environmental protection. The bears had demonstrated not just intelligence, but wisdom that suggested new possibilities for cooperation between humans and wildlife in preserving natural systems. 18 months after Mason's rescue, the impact of the bears extraordinary. Intelligence had begun transforming scientific understanding on a global scale. Research institutions worldwide were documenting similar patterns of advanced ursine behavior, suggesting a worldwide awakening of capabilities that had perhaps lain dormant for centuries. What started as a single remarkable rescue had evolved into a phenomenon that would revolutionize our relationship with the natural world. Dr. Patel's long-term study revealed something even more extraordinary in the bears' developmental patterns. They had begun creating what could only be described as natural universities, establishing different locations dedicated to specific fields of knowledge. Each site showed evidence of specialized teaching methods, with older bears taking on roles similar to professors in human educational systems, passing on expertise in areas ranging from medicine to engineering. Elizabeth Chen's ranger team documented an unprecedented level of coordination between bear populations across different national parks. The animals had established a sophisticated network for sharing information about environmental changes, potential threats, and new discoveries. This communication system demonstrated an understanding of long-distance information exchange that challenged existing theories about animal social networks. Mason, now approaching his 10th birthday, had become an invaluable bridge between human researchers and the bear community. His unique position as both student and interpreter helped scientists understand subtle aspects of bear communication that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. The bears seemed to recognize his role, often using him to demonstrate new concepts to human observers. The mathematical capabilities of the bears reached new levels of sophistication when they began demonstrating understanding of abstract concepts like infinity and zero. Using natural materials, they created representations of mathematical principles that some researchers compared to ancient Indian and Mayan mathematical systems. Their ability to convey these abstract concepts through physical demonstration challenged fundamental assumptions about animal cognition. Michael Running Wolf's comparative studies revealed striking parallels between the bear's knowledge systems and ancient wisdom traditions from various cultures worldwide. These connections suggested that the bear's intelligence might represent a form of natural knowledge that humans had once understood but had forgotten through generations of increasing separation from the natural world. James Morrison's K9 unit observed the bears developing increasingly sophisticated emergency response protocols. They had begun creating advanced warning systems for natural disasters, using their sensitivity to environmental changes to predict everything from earthquakes to avalanches. Their methods showed an understanding of geological and meteorological patterns that rivaled modern scientific monitoring systems. The bears' influence on ecosystem management had expanded to include active climate change adaptation strategies. They demonstrated methods for helping various species adapt to changing environmental conditions, showing an understanding of both immediate needs and long-term ecological transformation. Their approaches to environmental challenges showed evidence of strategic planning that went beyond simple survival instinct. Dr. Sarah Collins documented remarkable developments in the bear's medical knowledge. They had begun teaching other animals sophisticated healing techniques, showing them how to use different plants and minerals for various ailments. Their medical practices demonstrated understanding of both preventive care and treatment that combined empirical observation with intuitive knowledge. The Interspecies Communication Initiative recorded breakthrough moments in understanding the bears' expanding language capabilities. They had developed what appeared to be a universal translation system, using combinations of sounds, gestures, and natural symbols that could be understood across species barriers. This communication framework showed evidence of linguistic principles that challenged existing theories about animal language development. The bear's astronomical knowledge evolved to include sophisticated predictions of celestial events and their environmental impacts. They created elaborate natural calendars that could track both seasonal changes and longer astronomical cycles, showing understanding of celestial mechanics that some researchers compared to ancient astronomical traditions. Park officials documented transformation in wildlife social structures that extended far beyond bear communities. The bear's influence had led to development of cooperative systems between different species, creating new models of ecological interaction that improved resource distribution and reduced conflict. These social changes demonstrated understanding of complex social dynamics that rivaled human organizational systems. Mason's ongoing documentation revealed new dimensions of the bear's emotional intelligence. They showed ability to recognize and respond to subtle emotional states, not just in other bears or humans, but across diverse species. Their emotional awareness demonstrated understanding of psychological needs that challenged existing theories about limitations of animal consciousness. The bear's engineering projects expanded to include sophisticated environmental modifications designed to mitigate effects of climate change. They created systems for water conservation, soil preservation, and habitat adaptation that showed understanding of both immediate needs and long-term environmental transformation. Their construction methods demonstrated principles of sustainable engineering that some researchers compared to advanced human environmental management strategies. Dr. Patel's team documented extraordinary instances of bears teaching complex problem-solving strategies to multiple species simultaneously. They demonstrated ability to adapt their teaching methods to different learning styles and cognitive capabilities, showing understanding of educational psychology that rivaled human teaching theories. The bear's influence on wildlife rehabilitation practices led to development of new approaches to ecosystem recovery. They had begun showing other animals how to adapt to changing environmental conditions, demonstrating understanding of both individual species needs and broader ecological relationships. Their methods showed evidence of both practical knowledge and theoretical understanding of environmental science. Park rangers observed the bears creating sophisticated systems for monitoring and maintaining biodiversity. They developed methods for supporting endangered species, protecting vulnerable habitats, and maintaining ecological balance that showed understanding of complex environmental relationships. Their conservation strategies demonstrated principles of ecosystem management that challenged existing approaches to wildlife protection. The bear's impact on scientific understanding of animal intelligence continued to expand through their demonstrations of abstract thinking and creative problem-solving. They showed ability to analyze complex situations, develop innovative solutions, and teach these methods to others across species barriers. Their cognitive abilities challenge fundamental assumptions about limitations of animal consciousness. As the bears' influence spread globally, they began showing evidence of coordinated efforts to address worldwide environmental challenges. They created systems for sharing information about climate change impacts, developing adaptation strategies, and maintaining ecological balance across different regions. Their global awareness demonstrated understanding of environmental interconnections that suggested new possibilities for addressing planetary environmental challenges. The implications of these developments continued to ripple through scientific and conservation communities, transforming approaches to wildlife management and environmental protection. The bears had demonstrated not just intelligence, but wisdom that suggested new possibilities for cooperation between humans and wildlife in preserving Earth's natural systems for future generations. 2 years after Mason's miraculous rescue, a final extraordinary chapter began unfolding in this remarkable story. The bears of Glacier National Park, led by Alpha, orchestrated what would become known as the Great Gathering, an unprecedented assembly of wildlife from across North America that would demonstrate the full extent of their influence on the natural world and leave an indelible mark on human understanding of animal consciousness. Dr. Patel's research team witnessed the arrival of bear delegations from every major wilderness area in North America. Each group brought unique knowledge and innovations, creating what researchers would later describe as the first ever International Congress of Wild Animals. The sophistication of their organization and communication demonstrated levels of social coordination previously thought impossible in the animal kingdom. Elizabeth Chen's rangers documented an extraordinary transformation in the park's ecosystem during this gathering. The assembled bears began conducting what appeared to be formal presentations of their accumulated knowledge, creating elaborate demonstrations that showcased their understanding of everything from celestial navigation to environmental engineering. Each presentation revealed new depths to their cognitive capabilities. Mason, now a recognized interpreter between species, played a crucial role in helping researchers understand the significance of this gathering. The bears had chosen this moment to reveal the full extent of their capabilities, demonstrating forms of intelligence and awareness that would challenge every existing theory about animal consciousness. Their presentation showed not just knowledge, but understanding of how to transmit that knowledge across species barriers. The mathematical demonstrations during the gathering reached new levels of complexity. The bears created living mathematical models using assembled animals, demonstrating principles of geometry, physics, and even quantum mechanics through coordinated movements and formations. These displays showed understanding of mathematical concepts that some researchers compared to advanced theoretical physics. Michael Runningwolf's documentation of the event revealed profound connections to ancient prophecies from indigenous cultures worldwide. The gathering matched descriptions of legendary councils of animals found in traditional stories, suggesting that this level of animal intelligence and cooperation had been known to ancient peoples, but forgotten by modern civilization. James Morrison's K9 unit observed unprecedented levels of coordination between different species during emergency response. Demonstrations. The bears orchestrated complex rescue scenarios involving multiple species working together, showing how different animals could combine their unique abilities to address various types of crises. Their methods demonstrated sophisticated understanding of emergency management principles. The bears' presentation of ecosystem management strategies revealed solutions to environmental challenges that had puzzled human scientists for decades. They demonstrated methods for maintaining ecological balance that worked with natural systems rather than trying to control them, showing understanding of environmental principles that challenged existing conservation approaches. Dr. Sarah Collins documented remarkable demonstrations of healing techniques that combined the medical knowledge of multiple species. The bears had synthesized various natural healing methods into a comprehensive system of medicine that could be adapted for different species. Their medical knowledge showed understanding of biological principles that bridged modern science and traditional healing practices. The Interspecies Communication Initiative recorded the emergence of what appeared to be a universal animal language during the gathering. The bears had developed a sophisticated system of communication that could be understood by different species, creating a framework for sharing knowledge across species barriers. This communication system demonstrated linguistic principles that challenged existing theories about language development. The bears' astronomical knowledge reached new heights during the gathering, as they created elaborate living models of celestial movements using coordinated groups of animals. Their demonstrations showed understanding of astronomical principles that some researchers compared to ancient astronomical traditions, revealing sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics and their influence on Earth's systems. Park officials witnessed transformation in wildlife social structures that extended across species boundaries. The gathered animals demonstrated new models of cooperation and resource sharing that could potentially revolutionize understanding of ecosystem management. These social systems showed evidence of sophisticated organizational principles that challenged existing theories about animal social behavior. Mason's observations revealed new dimensions of animal emotional intelligence during the gathering. The assembled species demonstrated complex emotional awareness and empathy that extended across species barriers, showing understanding of psychological principles that suggested consciousness was far more widespread in nature than previously thought. The bears' engineering demonstrations during the gathering showcased sophisticated environmental modification techniques. They created complex structures and systems using only natural materials, demonstrating engineering principles that some researchers compared to advanced sustainable technology. Their methods showed understanding of physical principles that challenged assumptions about animal tool use. Dr. Patel's team documented extraordinary knowledge-sharing sessions where different species taught each other their unique survival techniques. These exchanges demonstrated sophisticated understanding of teaching methodologies that could be adapted for different learning styles and capabilities. The educational system they demonstrated showed principles that rivaled advanced human pedagogical theories. The gathered animals' approach to environmental challenges revealed new possibilities for addressing global ecological issues. They demonstrated methods for adapting to climate change and maintaining biodiversity that showed understanding of both immediate needs and long-term environmental transformation. Their solutions suggested new approaches to environmental conservation that could benefit both wildlife and human communities. As the gathering drew to a close, Alpha and the other bears orchestrated a final demonstration that would become legendary in scientific circles. The assembled animals created a living model of Earth's ecosystems, with each species playing its part in demonstrating the intricate connections that maintain planetary balance. This display showed understanding of ecological principles that transcended individual species awareness. The bears' final gift to humanity was a demonstration of how different species could work together to address environmental challenges. They showed how combining the unique capabilities of various animals could create solutions to problems that no single species could solve alone. This model of cooperation suggested new possibilities for addressing global environmental issues. The implications of the Great Gathering continued to ripple through scientific and conservation communities. Long after the animals dispersed, the bears had demonstrated not just intelligence but wisdom that suggested new possibilities for cooperation between humans and wildlife. Their legacy would continue to influence human understanding of the natural world for generations to come. Mason's rescue had initiated a chain of events that transformed human understanding of animal consciousness and intelligence. What began as an extraordinary act of compassion had evolved into a movement that would reshape humanity's relationship with the natural world, suggesting new possibilities for cooperation between species in preserving Earth's natural systems for future generations.